Hey guys, we're going to talk about the Westworld Season 1 finale, full spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, you've been warned, but you're still here. Let's go. I did my own sort of mini quick video right after, but I want to talk more in depth about it because obviously there was a lot going on here, a lot to digest. But let's start out with the big reveal, the Man in Black and William were the same person.
See, my question is that the big reveal, or is it that Ford's narrative was the host uprising the whole time?
And I agree. Like I agree. I should say. I think I agree with where you're going, which is that that's ended up being the more important reveal.
Right.
But I want to talk first about the Man in Black, William one, because everyone saw it coming. Yeah. That's from the second episode when we met William. There were theories online. And it kind of kept, so even if you weren't thinking it initially, then you couldn't help but hear people talking about it. So we went into this finale, I think, with a lot of people expecting this. So that being the case, because it was still very important in the finale, do you think that the fact that at this point it was pretty predictable that it was going to happen diminished anything dramatically?
I'm just glad that they didn't do the same thing with the Man in Black that they did with the Arnold reveal, because I think when they were creating this show, the showrunners probably didn't expect people to pick up on all their big reveals as early as they did.
Yeah.
And I think that this still did come as a shock to a lot of people. My favorite comment in your review on this episode was this guy was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe the Man in Black was William. I never saw that coming. For anyone who said that they saw that, I call BS. There's no way." And every response was, "Dude, literally everyone saw that."
Right.
So clearly it still was a surprise to some people. But with Arnold, they went the whole episode, and I was like, you should have just done it a third of the way through. It's not as big of a reveal as you're making it be, because we're just waiting for that shoe to drop instead of, seeing what comes after. And I think with the Man in Black, they did the right thing by having it happen about a third of the way through the episode, I think around then. So, okay, yes, we get it, but that's not the point. The point is, what does that mean? And I was honestly surprised that for William, it wasn't as sentimental as I expected it to be. I thought that his whole reason to help the host achieve consciousness was for a more romantic reason.
Right.
She clearly now, as she remembers her journey with him, holds him in very high regard. For him, it was very selfish. It was, I want this to feel real for me.
Yeah.
I want to feel what I felt with you the first time we experienced this, until I realized it is all a lie, like Logan was telling me all along. So I think in that way it worked. Fortunately, it was satisfying, and I think that was the most we could have asked for.
Yeah, I ultimately feel like it probably did not need to wait till the finale even to happen.
Totally.
But I too was just relieved that it happened. I think about halfway through, a third or halfway through, just because I was so nervous that it would be the final reveal,
right.
In which case it would be, I think, a big letdown. But there was so much more, and I really liked the finale. I gave it an 8.5, which some people seem to think means I hated it.
Hey, I gave the second to last episode a 9.1, and people were like, "This is a 10. You're terrible. This is a bad score."
I know we're at the point where everyone's so passionate about it that every episode's a 10. But I love Westworld. This wasn't one of my very favorite episodes. I think there were some clunky spots to it, but I think it was a really good episode. And yeah, I think that once they revealed that, and that the stuff with Ford is what really was important and had the big impact here, and really changes things going forward for everything, not just for Dolores.
Totally. And I do think, we were actually talking with our producer Tom right before this about how this is just an incredibly satisfying episode. And I think the biggest success of Westworld Season 1 is that you can go back and you can rewatch it and you can understand so much more, even if there weren't a huge amount of twists and turns in this specific episode. You can have a completely new perspective on the entire show. And also that they did pay off all those theories people guessed early on in ways that weren't just, "Oh, and you got it right." It was, you got it right, and here's more. Here's why you should care, even though you got, that the first half of it right. Here's where it goes next, and here's why you should keep being excited. And I think that if it didn't have that, we would feel maybe a little bit more hollow looking back at the journey we've been on.
Yeah, even though I think they should have revealed probably that William and the Man in Black were the same person earlier in the season, I also was glad that they didn't try some insane swerve.
Right.
I mean, Logan would be the only other person that could in any way work, otherwise it would have felt like a real cheat. If they're like, actually, it's this dude William walked by in the first episode, and that was the Man in Black the whole time. So I was glad, I mean, it played things, true and fair. So yes, people could guess what was happening because people were so theorizing about it, but it didn't feel like they were cheating.
I also want to give them props for actually explaining it and laying it out pretty succinctly for people who were like, what has been going on this whole time? And especially with Dolores, like that has been the repeated thing. Don't call it multiple timelines. It's multiple time frames.
Multiple eras.
Yeah, multiple eras. We need to use
one
the right
timeline.
I know. But
no flashpoint.
To even like convey that in a relatively clear manner, where people were very confused up until that point, like. Good for you, Westworld.
Right.
You did better than most of the rest of us in trying to make that clear.
Yeah, I think because it is true that there are people who aren't online reading about this show constantly who did not see it coming, I'm sure. And yeah, I think that they did a good job of saying, here's how it works. But let's talk about sort of the other huge thing happening, which was Maeve's breakout and the mayhem that accompanied all that.
Okay, we have been very vocal about how much we've loved Maeve's storyline all season.
Been great,
and
my favorite storyline.
The biggest complaint against her, which is valid, was like, or her storyline, I should say, is like, it doesn't make sense. Why would Felix be going along with this? And I love that we pretty much get, it's not explicitly stated, I'm sure it will be, considering how Westworld does explicitly explain stuff, but like, Felix, to me, very clearly was going along with Ford's plan. And to me, again, like, I think that this was Ford who was manipulating her narrative. And I know, like, it's not confirmed. You even talked to the showrunners.
Yeah.
They wouldn't flat out say it.
They wouldn't 100% say it, but they mostly said it. They said that certainly at this point, after what we learned, assuming that Ford was the one behind her reprogramming, makes a lot of sense. And that's most likely what was happening.
But I think that, like, learning that piece of the puzzle should hopefully allay the concerns that people might have had before of like, why was he going along with this? Why was this happening? Knowing that there were other forces at play. I still, like, that's my favorite arc, though Armistice was much more of a badass in the finale. I just like loved her getting the machine gun and
her
like
expression, her
new
reaction.
toy. Just Maeve's storyline is so powerful, and I have so many questions about the what and the hows of her decisions in the finale that hopefully we'll find out more about in season 2.
Yeah, it was funny. I loved all that stuff. I loved their sort of whole escape. I was a little conflicted on Maeve's decision to go back, simply because it was two sides of me. The sort of overall story arc side of me was disappointed because we kept thinking Maeve is going to be our window to go out of Westworld.
So I don't know. I wasn't quite sure we'd ever make it out of Westworld.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, if we were in season 1, this seemed to be. I didn't think we were going to see anything.
Her programming was mainland infiltration.
Right. But on the other hand, I totally understand the like emotional importance of her deciding to go back, which, like you were just inferring, seems to be her breaking programming like Dolores is now. And, because she found out the entire, everything that was happening had been planned by, we assume, Ford, but her going back seems to be her own decision.
See, so I was expecting the, coordinates that she got to be where, the whole event with the Delos heads was going down, which obviously we didn't get that revealed. But I almost wondered, just the way Felix was talking about her daughter, is she still on that path or has she broken free? And that is my big question. Even with Dolores seeing herself, understanding it's her voice in her head, she played out that scene after exactly as Ford clearly planned.
Right.
And so I'm still conflicted. Even as she has achieved this understanding of consciousness, is she conscious? Is she not? Is Maeve still on the path that is being written for her, or did she make the decision that breaks free? And I don't feel like those answers are clear in the finale in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I did ask Nolan and Joy about that as well, especially with Ford and the fact that he seemed to know Dolores was going to kill him. Well, that almost seems like he just programmed her again, and they basically said,
is he just a host version of Ford? That host that we saw.
They said no.
Okay.
Okay.
They
said,
no Hopkins coming back.
Yeah, they said that you should assume that's the real Ford, but they also said that it's a weird fine line. This is now me kind of going down my own road of it of Ford not programming her versus kind of manipulating her. Is one better than the other? I don't know. I think that's for you to, because he did kind of know what was going to happen, but he hadn't literally typed it into a computer.
Right.
It still sort of shows that he is the puppet master. you could say.
And I think it's really interesting because this whole season was leaning towards Ford being the villain, and here we see, and in fairly subtle ways, for all that Westworld isn't always subtle about their reveals, like he is doing what Arnold didn't. Arnold didn't have any witnesses when he orchestrated this exact same massacre, like all those years ago. They were able to sweep it under the rug because it was only hosts who saw it happen.
Yeah.
Here, when Ford does the exact same situation, has Dolores shoot everyone who's there as a way to close the park and give the hosts their freedom and their chance to achieve consciousness. Like, I don't know. I thought that was such an interesting twist, and one I didn't see coming because I thought they were building him up to be a villain. And here I think, him learning and understanding what Arnold had already come to an understanding of 30, 35 years earlier was a really interesting arc for him that I look forward to going back and watching that track throughout the season.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're running long at this point anyway. So to wrap up,
it's a long episode.
I do want to say in passing that I also loved the Dolores is Wyatt sort of reveal.
Yeah.
Which again, I made sure not to dive into every theory out there. I didn't want it to sort of cloud my mind, and I guess after the fact, learning that some people were already going down that road. I wasn't going down that road, but I thought, oh, that makes sense, especially with Teddy having these sort of muddy memories of this massacre. I really liked how that all tracked. But I have to ask you before we end about the reveal of another theme park.
Oh my God, I yelled, I cheered. Is it Samurai World? Is it Shogun World? Doesn't matter.
I couldn't get them to confirm the name in the interview.
I couldn't believe, I did not think we were gonna see that, and it was so fun. I was watching with 3 other people, and we all just went, Samurai? Oh my God.
I started screaming the same thing to my wife. Yeah.
It's so cool. And there's a big question about what season 2 will be. The assumption is it will just pick up where we left off. But I would be fine with season 1 standing on its own and season 1 telling a completely different story in Samurai World or Medieval World or some of these other things. It would be really fun to sort of see those weave together, even though I don't think that's where they'd go. I would be just greenlight Samurai World.
I was going to say spin-offs, franchise it. We have a whole thing happening here. I will say, Westworld, get better security because they were not. I guess that was one of the things. As much as I was enjoying the finale, there was a little bit
worse than stormtroopers.
There was the suspension of disbelief you had to kind of really go with, because especially when Maeve got up the elevator, I'm like, well, wouldn't they put the lobby on lockdown at that point?
And that's why I thought that it was something that Ford was just orchestrating there and just saying, okay, it's fine that it's a loss of life, and the way that everyone was just sort of watching her walk through too. But there's also the question that's never really been cleared up, I think, about how many people are hosts there. I loved the acknowledgement that Felix isn't.
That was such a funny moment.
It was perfect.
It was a perfect humor beat in the middle of an intense situation.
Especially since, obviously everyone else has been thinking the same thing for a while.
Yeah.
It's a great way to anticipate that. But are there other... I'm sure that there's a decent percentage of hosts that are working there who maybe are programmed don't kill one of these characters, and that's why they aren't. But yeah, it came off a little weird.
Yeah. But anyway, we're very excited about Westworld, as you can tell.
I do want to quickly say, though, my biggest issue is the questions left hanging that felt like they needed more resolution. And we can quickly touch upon them, but the Elsie of it all and what happened to Stubbs. I thought that those were just weird beats to happen a couple or a few episodes ago.
To not be mentioned at all in the finale.
And they just seem like weird small moments to pick up on later. There should have been some other acknowledgement, and that sort of, I was like, well, that was maybe clunky writing or just editing, and things got moved up when they should.
Right, it just seemed like they made priorities, because I love Elsie, I want to see her again.
Yeah, well, it seems like, considering how much they've dragged it out, she's probably not.
I think she'll pop up at some point. Anyway, those are our thoughts on Westworld season finale. We could talk for a lot longer about this. But let us know what you think in the comments. We'll be talking a lot more about the show. It's not back till 2018, but don't worry. We'll have plenty more here at IGN. Thanks, guys.